This week we head over to Algarve for the Portugal Grand Prix. Japanese Grand Prix also inked a 3-year deal. And two former drivers told two current drivers, one, you need to take off a year. The other one, you're just too slow. Who are they? Find out next. Welcome into the F1 starting grid. I'm your lovely host, Brock Young. On behalf of Chaz Day and Mike Allen, we welcome you into another week of unique F1 talk. Guys, we're on the brink of the Portugal Grand Prix. Are you excited? Are you excited?
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too.
Well, before we get into the picks, I want to break down Portugal a little bit, show you the track right quick. It is the first Grand Prix on this track was back in 2020. Last year was 66 laps planned for this year, 15 corners. That is a current circuit length is 4.6 kilometers. That's roughly about 2.9 miles. And the whole race distance is 306 kilometers, which is roughly about 190 miles. And the record lap was, of course, set last year only by Lewis Hamilton with 1:18. Now, I want to get into a little bit different discussion going into this race here. And Chaz, I'm going to bring it to you first. Who do you, if you're advising Lewis Hamilton in this race, I mean, he lost last time in Imola, but what would you give advice to him as far as how he should win the race?
Yeah, I think the big deal is tire strategy. I think it's going to come down to tire strategy. I would probably give some sort of. I would wait to see what Red Bull did with their tires in the qualifying laps, and then see if we can get off to maybe a solid start. So maybe if they go on a softer tire, maybe we go on a harder tire so that we can stay out longer and build a lead. It's tough because, I mean, we say this all the time. Verstappen's such a strong driver. He's so great, particularly with overtaking as well, right? So Lewis's defense is great. It's actually really great. But I mean, if we're also struggling with tires, then it's going to be nearly impossible. So if he can stay out longer and then have faster tires on later in the race, I feel like that's a strategy that could give him the highest likelihood of winning.
Well, it's been announced earlier this week that they're actually going to introduce the hardest compound so far this year with the tires, C1, C2, and C3. So that'll be very interesting of how he manages those tires and everything. Because 2 weeks ago in Imola, I mean, I pointed this out last week that Max almost ran a perfect race because of those tires. He stayed on it perfectly. So to your point, Chaz, I mean, everything comes down to managing those tires. I mean, look at Lewis Hamilton last year in Silverstone. I mean, he had a flat tire the last lap, and yet he pushed it until the finish line so he could beat Max. And Max was coming right on him too. So, I mean, it was very interesting to see. How about you? I want to throw this question to you, Mike. How about your advice to Max?
Put your pedal down and don't look back. I think he's gonna. I think he's gonna be at least P1 or P2 if he gets out ahead of Hamilton. If his car is anything like it has been, I mean, it's gonna run. So it's gonna be hard to overtake him. I think that's a good strategy. I totally agree with the tires, but so far Red Bull's guessed right, and they've got the best car in the grid so far. Of course, we don't know. People could have made. They had 2 weeks to make improvements on their cars, but my advice to Max is get out front early and then just extend his lead like he did the last race and make others fight to catch up. And if people are fighting to catch up, that's when they make mistakes.
Well, this track is relatively new. I mean, it is new for the Formula One calendar, just introduced last year. For me, this is almost the fans like it, the drivers like it, but for me, this is almost a mirror image of Spain's Grand Prix, which is actually going to be the following weekend. To tell you the truth, I saw when I saw this last year. I mean, there was not much. There's only one big straightaway on this, so there's not much chance for overtaking. I mean, the track itself is wider compared to other tracks, but I mean, there's so many corners in such a tight space that, I mean, it's just like a regular road course. Pole is everything. Trying to get on pole so you won't be overtaken by the first corner. But as Max proved in Imola, he could probably overtake that within 2 car lengths before the first turn. Let's go into picks right quick. Now, Mike, you are leading by 84 points. Chaz, you're in second with 69. I am in third with 44. But I want to approach this week a little differently. I will give us our top 3 picks that we think is going to happen, but also an extra pick prediction of what we think is also going to happen on top of the podium. So I'm going with the same Max, Lewis, Sergio. I am going to continue to bet on black until I get a winner. I'm going to stick with that until I don't know what happens, but my extra prediction is I believe just like with Imola, both Alpines will finish in points. Chaz, who's going to be on the podium for you?
So I have a hot take, not really a hot take, kind of a hot take. I think that Bottas is going to have a resurgence this week. He drives a great car. He should be able to pull something out. So I think I'm calling Hamilton winning the race, Verstappen coming in second, and then Bottas ringing in the third spot on the podium. As far as something interesting that might happen, I think that Mazepin is going to finish in the top 10. No, I'm just kidding. That's not true.
I was writing that down.
No, hey, jump on that, man. Come on.
No. No, I feel like Gasly is going to could have a strong week. He's been racing well, so I feel like he may have a top 6 finish this week. Where did he finish last week? Let me take a look.
I think P7 or P8.
Yeah. Which is fantastic. I think he's gonna move up this week.
So top P6.
Yes.
Okay.
P6. Yeah.
Okay. Mike, how about you? Who's going to taste that champagne this week?
Verstappen P1. Charles Leclerc P2.
Nice.
Pierre Gasly P3. And Tsunoda and George Russell will finish in the points.
You said, I'm sorry, Yuki and
Russell will finish in points.
both.
Yep.
Okay. That is a bold statement right there, even though it almost happened.
Well, it's a wide course. The weather's going to be cool. So Verstappen is strong when the weather's cooler and dry. And it's a wide course. So George Russell shouldn't run into anybody going down the straight.
Well, one thing I did not...
And Yuki was in the points and spun out, and that's what knocked him out of the top 10. So it's got a lot of curves. It's got that one almost 90-degree curve coming back, but that that tends to push a slower race, and with a wide course and a lot of wide runoffs, so you're not going to hit any walls or anything. So that kind of plays in the favor of the younger drivers, less experienced drivers, and those guys are fast. I mean, George is quick. He just, I think, where Russell, if Russell hadn't crashed, he'd have been in the points.
Yep.
Bottas both. So he just needs to not run into another car, and but I think him and Yuki both will be in the points.
Well, one thing I did not tell you guys, what I'm planning on doing here is you would have to get your prediction 100% correct. See, like for me, if only one Alpine finishes in points, I don't get the points on this one. But if you get this other prediction correct, like Gasly finishing the top 6, Chaz, you'll get an extra 20 points added to your total. So,
I appreciate that.
Well, Gasly will have to finish the top 6 first, but come on. So for you, Mike, Yuki, and Russell, will have to finish points.
Hey, it ain't going to change.
Ain't going to change. Okay. Mike will still lead by the end of our next week.
Brock. It ain't going to change.
I tell you what, Mike, since you're big in this, I want to do this right quick. Hold on. Mike, if Chaz overtakes you,
which is extremely possible.
Extremely possible. If Chaz overtakes you this weekend, you got to buy both us Dogecoin. He's big in a Dogecoin, so.
Well, so far my little $175 investment 3 years ago was netting me about $6,000. So I'll get y'all a couple of Dogecoin if you want.
Okay, but Chaz will have to finish higher.
Wait, you invested $600?
No, I invested about 140.
140.
In 2015.
It's worth more than that, bro.
I know. I bought it.
It's worth more than $6,000. I would take a look at it again. I don't know when the last time you looked at it.
I'm on it every day. I'm looking. I'm watching. I'm waiting for my house to get paid off.
Okay, we'll talk offline.
Okay. Anyway.
But yes, thank you for the Dogecoin. I appreciate it, Mike.
Yes.
Do you have Dogecoin, Chaz?
You know what? I'm one of those people who who someone specifically was like, "Hey, do this." I knew that it was a joke thing, so I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. It's stupid." And then I recently did the calculations for what I would have put in when they told me, and I was like, I mean, I wouldn't be living the same life today. But yeah, so that's why I said that. Yeah.
I bought $30 a couple years back, and then I bought some more like last year when it started to climb a little bit, and then now I'm just letting it go. I don't even look at it. I'm just waiting for it to hit that 6 figure so I can cash out. So I can dump and run.
There it is.
Well, Chaz, you pointed out something earlier in your picks that you think Bottas will have a surge. That's a good segue into what we have to talk about next. I got 2 different stories here about Bottas, which I'm going to read both of them to you. Then after that, we'll break it all down, if that's okay. One of them is Bottas not expecting Mercedes or any team for that matter to dominate in 2021. And he says, while Bottas will certainly not write off this team's season, in addition of an unprecedented 8 double-win title for 2021, according to the Finn, race weekend dominance from Mercedes was unlikely for this season. And I quote, "I think dominating a Grand Prix this year will be difficult, seeing the starting point. We have been quite big swings in performance to track, but we never know. But I can't see anyone really dominating this year. I still believe we can catch them. I still believe from the feeling in the car that is more than an unlocked from it. If we get any balance right, if we get the car to be more drivable, the true corner balance, more reliable, with understanding and fine-tuning setup, there will be more to come. 23 races is a long time to learn about the package." However, this is very interesting. Former world champion from 1997, Jacques Villeneuve, said he branded Bottas as simply too slow and believes that will hamper Lewis Hamilton's campaign as he won't provide any 7-time world champion in the sport. He would need to beat Max Verstappen. And he says, he quote, Perez is the newcomer to Red Bull team, and yet he is already stronger than Bottas, who is fifth season with Mercedes. Perez can't help Max more than Bottas can do for Hamilton. The 1997 world champion also says that he questions Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff's reaction to Bottas-Russell's crash, as well as Bottas defending it. He says, and I quote, I don't quite understand Toto Wolff. Why does he blame the young Brit in the collision with the Mercedes Junior Russell? Bottas knew that his potential successor was about to overtake him and risk a serious accident with a slight move to the right. He mustn't do that under these track circumstances. This shows how tense Bottas is already the second race of the season, and that's not going to get any better because he's simply too slow. If he wasn't, he wouldn't have to defend the position so hard against a Williams. And at the time of the wreck, this is just something extra. At the time of wreck, Bottas experienced 30 Gs. And something extra here, the track engineered manager for Mercedes said the car itself is beyond repair. Now, our Mercedes guy, Chaz, take all that in.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I love that Toto is defending his driver. I mean, would you really expect anything else? It would be pretty insane for him to go up there and say, yeah, I think it was all his fault. I mean, what does that conversation look like when he goes back to the garage and now he has to talk to one of his drivers or encourage one of his drivers in the upcoming week, where at the beginning of the year, he's not going to shit on his driver, right at the beginning of the year, and harp on him for making a mistake. Was it Bottas's fault? I think so. I think it probably was. I don't know that he gave him enough space, and I also think while you were reading what Jacques was saying, I was thinking about it. That is an interesting point, to have to fight so hard against a Williams in that car. So yeah, I think it probably was his fault, but yeah, I think it would be pretty ridiculous for Toto to call him out on it, especially to the public.
Well, I agree with that too. But looking back at the race too, and I saw how, and I was thinking what y'all guys said last week, but I saw how Bottas was coming over that line towards the turn, and Russell was just right behind him trying to make that. That's why he ran off a little bit. But for Russell to come out with apology the next day when it really wasn't his fault, I think it's just something that he really wants that Mercedes seat, so he's just trying to play ball with everybody, basically. Mike, what do you say from all this?
I went back and looked at it, and I saw Russell's apology, and I really, really, really wanted it to be Bottas's fault.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it was, because he had his nose was ahead. Per the protocol, his nose was ahead. He had the line into the curb, and he has the advantage. So George should have backed off, got behind him. Because, I mean, you have to be, when you're going into a curve, you have to be almost right next to him or a little bit ahead of him to have that curve. And he was way behind him. I mean, his front wheel wasn't even halfway up his car. So, and he tried to stick his nose in there where he had no room. So, that was an over enthusiastic George Russell trying to make a move, split second. Well, you have to make that decision. You're going 100 plus miles an hour in a little car, and he made the wrong call. I think he was right to apologize. I do believe there's a little politics into that, because he doesn't want to lose his seat at Mercedes when Lewis leaves. Even though I would love to see him stay at Williams and bring Williams back to prominence, but when you're in Bottas's shoes and you have the line and you're going into the curb, you don't expect somebody to be right next to you. out of your sight line, trying to squeeze a 4-foot wide car into a 2-foot space. It's so. I'm gonna have to. I think George had the responsibility to yield, and he didn't. And he tried to push it, tried to get ahead, to get that advantage. And I don't know if Bottas saw him or not, but if he saw him, then I would agree. But I think he was just in the line and in the zone, and all of a sudden there was a car next to him, and he tangled.
Well, I mean, for the fact that it was, once again, fitting a Williams trying to pass a Mercedes. I think also Russell was just excited to be in that position. He was trying to get points for Williams. But for me, I'm split in between. It's 50-50. I think both have a little bit to blame. Bottas, yes, he had a nose ahead, but he was also over the line. There was plenty of room for him to move to the left a little bit and let Russell pass. But I think also Russell was a little eager in getting that extra pointage in that extra position to get those points for Williams. But
so I actually, after hearing you give your opinion, I wanted to look back at the crash just to make sure I remember what I remembered correctly. And they were wheel to wheel. So when they did ultimately crash, but they so my opinion is more so along the lines of Brock, where I feel like they both have fault, obviously, to some extent. I just think he should have left a little bit more room. But I'm always going to lean on the side of a guy who's racing. I just don't I actually think the dirty thing to do in racing is when you cut somebody off and cut off their line. I don't think that the wrong thing to do is the person who's being aggressive and going for it, especially when they actually, he was past his back wheels. So if he didn't see him, it was because he wasn't looking, right? Which is part of your responsibility as a driver.
Oh yeah. I mean, I get it, but I don't know. I watched it a few times, and I just think that Russell probably, if he would have just been a little more patient, just would have backed off just a little bit and got behind him, there's another opportunity. He would have had another opportunity because Bottas's car was not running fast at all.
Right. But I love this because we have a Williams guy and a Mercedes guy swapped in their opinion right now. So that's oh man, now I've seen everything. I could die happy, man.
Because we're objective.
Yes, that's what I love about it. Speaking about being objective,
Phil Williams sends me a free shirt.
Mike, they can't afford that right now.
When they give me a pass down, when they get me a pass down to the paddock, then I'll be like, Bottas should have put it in reverse.
Yeah, I question your fandom because if they start giving out free stuff to fans, it's gonna put them into bankruptcy.
Pretty much.
They're gonna have a GoFundMe the week after.
You're gonna have a solid white car with nothing on it. They don't have enough money for the stickers.
Yeah.
I can see that. Our Twitter question of the week was, will Aston Martin continue to be a mid-tier team? It was actually, results were 50-50 on that. But going to a story about Aston Martin, more particularly about Seb, their team principal was stated that he is working tirelessly to turn things around over at Aston Martin. And he says, and I quote, "I think he's fine. He has a very high expectation of himself. He works tirelessly to get better and move up that learning curve. But he's not beating himself up, so to speak. It'll just take a bit of frustration and he'll learn more to determine to get up to speed. It wasn't his fault at all. We originally burned his rear brakes, deducts, and cake tins. After this, in the pit lane and the penalty, he had no chance really. I guess my biggest regret," he says, is that we weren't reliable as we should have been in the winter. Really, go figure. But also a former driver by Gerhard Berger, suggested by Speedweek.com. He says, "I would have been better to take. It wouldn't have been better to take a year off. From today's perspective, yes, but the observation period is still too short. I wouldn't draw to conclusions after 2 races. From my own experience, I know the time will come when you have to pass your zenith. You have to take this development into account. If you're a successful racing driver and continue to pursue the sport with all your experience and passion, that will lead to good success." But not only Berger had this opinion, but also Helmut Marko, who leads Red Bull, says, "I was of the opinion he should have taken a year off, sort things out, ask himself what he wants, and I believe there's a lot of possibility within Formula One next year." And that's after last year's season with Ferrari. That's what Helmut Marko said. In your opinion, Mike?
Well, these are guys that are, in tune with the race. Sebastian Vettel is very well respected within the community. He's a 3-time world champion. So, he knows how to race. But, there might be something to that. I know last week we talked about the mentality of this and the mentality of the race. And, when you get on that negative, when you lose the confidence in what you're doing, and you start getting the negative aspects of it, it's hard to recover from. It's hard to come back from that. So, he had a tough run at Ferrari. It wasn't the success he was looking for. There might have been some regret about leaving Red Bull. Who knows? Who knows what the thought process is? But he's had a bad run, and it's a slump. And you might take a year off, go run some rally races, go run a Le Mans, go back to the guy from Spain.
Oh, Alonso,
like Alonso does. I mean, when in his off duty to unwind, he goes and he races karts. Just kind of get your mojo back, refreshed, get some batteries recharged, step away from it, just clear your mind and come back fresh and ready to go. I mean, there might be something to it. I don't think what they're telling him, I don't think they're busting his balls. I think that what they're saying is out of genuine concern for Sebastian, and they want him to do well, and they don't want him to see him get hurt, and they certainly don't want to see him continue because he's not having very good success at all.
Or is the ego still there that he wants to race, Chaz?
Did you say ego?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, of course, and it very well should be. I immediately had the same thought that Mike had, which was just about Alonso, right? And I think it probably would serve him well. He's not in a good place objectively. He's not in a good place when it comes to racing. I mean, having been relegated to a third tier team at this point, maybe second tier team, that's not a great place to be in your career. It's possible for him with his driving skill to come back, but he was already on the decline, even with Ferrari. I mean, he had probably one of the worst seasons of his career this past year, just outperformed like crazy by Leclerc. So, yeah, man, take a step away and recharge. It seems like he still loves to race. He's still having a good time. I just don't think that. I guess it depends on what his goals are. If his goal is to race as long as he can race and make as much money as he can, then keep going. It seems like he's having a good time. It just doesn't seem like he takes winning very seriously, because he doesn't seem very torn up about anything. He seems like he's having a great time out there, which is, theoretically it's great, right? Like, it's like, oh, I mean, you want people to enjoy what they're doing. But if someone with his talent is underperforming and they seem to be happy about it, and not really getting better, as a fan, it does cause you to have a little bit of resentment, especially if you're a Ferrari fan.
Well, right now, in the constructor standings, we have Mercedes at number 1, then Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari at number 4. Then it breaks down to the mid-tier with number 5, AlphaTauri, then Aston Martin at 6, followed by Alpine, Alfa Romeo, Williams, and followed by Haas. Now, of those 3 there in the mid-tier, AlphaTauri has 8 points, Aston Martin has 5, and Alpine has 3. And that's those 5 points. It has to be thanks to, I can't believe I'm going to say this, Sir Lancelot and Lance Stroll. He's carrying the team right now over a 4-time world champion. So it has to say something. Yeah, he should have taken a year off, in my opinion. But it is too late. So he's inked that contract with Aston Martin. So he's there until what? I don't even know how long this contract is. 3 years?
I think so. I think it's 3 years.
3 years. So unless something happens where like he gets replaced, but well, speaking about inking deals here, they just finished finalizing a deal about sprint races. Where they're going to have 3 of them this season. First place will have 3 points. Second place will have 2 points. Third place will have 1 point. And the winners, or how you finish in the sprint races, will be how you start in the race on Sunday. And the 3 planned tracks for this is 2 in Europe, 1 outside of Europe. One is going to be, the 2 in Europe are going to be Silverstone and Monza. And the third one, they have not definitively picked it yet, but it looks like it's going to be Brazil. Original plan was going to be Canada. But Chaz, actually you want to talk about Canada here in a little bit, but let's I know this is like the 3rd time we're talking about this since the beginning of the year, but it's still news. It's still coming up. Chaz, your first take on this about sprint races.
Yeah, I mean, we had talked about it before too. I think I'm not necessarily a fan of it, but I think fans are a fan of it. Apparently, they like the sprint race format. I know that Formula One's trying to make a lot of moves in order to make the races more engaging for especially new fans. So I personally am fine with races the way that they are. I don't love the idea of having these other races, especially if they're going to inform the outcome of the major race, something beyond qualifying. But yeah, I mean, if fans like it, I'm a fan of Formula One doing things creatively and stepping outside of the box in order to get more fans, and in order to make the races more engaging. I'll never oppose that. Trying new things, especially because as much as I hate it, and I know we've talked about this too on the show, as much as I hate it, I think in the coming years, Formula One's going to have some very difficult times ahead of them, specifically when it comes to what's going on with renewable energy. It's going to be interesting times over the next 5 to 10 years for sure. They may struggle a lot. So that being said, I'm not gonna hold it against them. Anything they're trying to do to build up their brand and build up a loyal following around the world, and especially in the United States, it'll help them once they make whatever transition they may be forced to take in the coming years when the renewable energy revolution really kicks up to full speed and starts affecting them.
Well, Mike, you can make all the DVR jokes you want about this, but I look forward to qualifying every single race. In fact, I almost like preferring qualifying over the race itself sometimes, because the way the announcers just make it just like, oh my God, he goes into it. And Lewis is back on pole, stuff like that. Yeah, I just love that, anticipation for the race itself. Will we have that for sprint races? I'm in the opinion that I have to see it. I know Formula 2 with it is very successful, but For me, I just got to see how it is. But you talk about renewable energy, Chaz. We're going to have in the next coming weeks. We're going to have this poll out on Twitter. Will Formula One go the way of Formula E in electric vehicles? Stay tuned for that too. But Mike, your opinion on the sprint races? I know we talked about this extensively in the past, but since this is making news now, it is official that they're going to try it out for 3 races.
Well, I'm with Chaz. I'm not a big fan if it's going to affect the main race, but it would be cool for the points. If you could put together a good sprint race, a good sprint session with your car. Of course, a lot of things can happen to give other teams a little bit of an advantage. I think it's going to be exciting. I'd like to see how it pans out. And I'm like you, Brock. I like to watch everything. Practices, even they're making practices interesting now, which is fun. But for me, the race starts with qualifying, and it's pretty exciting to see all the cars do that, and to add that wrinkle of a sprint type competition in there. I think it's just going to enhance the whole sport, to be honest.
Well, said before, it's going to be in Silverstone, Monza, and possibly Brazil. But Chaz, you wanted to talk about Canada and as well as another circuit on the calendar?
Well, just mentioning, I think Michael alluded to it a little bit too, and we've been talking about these last couple of weeks. Just all these races that are either being replaced or nixed altogether. A lot of them are being replaced. So, we gained the Turkish Grand Prix. I think this week that was announced, right? But lost Canada. So from a North American circuit standpoint, we gained another European circuit and lost a North American one, which stinks in my perspective. So having I think you mentioned, I'm not sure if you mentioned it before the show or whether it made its way into the show yet, but just talking about another race in the United States, a third race in the United States, in addition to Austin and Miami, that would be, I think it would do loads for gaining new fans. I mean, just think about how how difficult it is for someone to become a fan, or I would just say, think about how people become fans in general, right? Like, the NFL is massive. Also, a lot of people go to NFL games, right? NBA is massive. Also, a lot of people go to NBA games. I don't think that it's a coincidence that that's the case, right? If for a long time, it hasn't been possible for American people to go to Formula One races. It's just not accessible. And, in addition to not really being able to watch it on TV, you also don't even have that friend who goes to the race because there are no races around in the country. So, who just took you that one time and you fell in love with it. That doesn't happen when there's no races to go to. So if we add more races in the United States, I think it will make a huge difference. So if we can get another one to replace Canada, I think that would be awesome.
Well, to that point, Chaz, I'm just seeing this now here on Formula1.com. It was just posted not too long ago that yes, Turkey will replace Canada on the calendar this season due to Canada's high COVID reporting here. But
everybody knows the French can't stop kissing.
Well, that just came out of left field. Thank you. But I will. That's sad to see because I do enjoy Canada's race, and it's just 2 years in a row not having Canada on there. It kind of hurts me a little bit. But on the flip side of that, logistically, it helps F1 out without coming from Europe for Canada for only one race in North America, then heading back to Europe So logistically, this probably makes a little better
No,
sense.
they usually go to South America after that. They usually go down to Brazil.
No, that's actually in the fall. With Canada's normally in the spring, then
Or no,
and
they go to Mexico. I'm sorry.
yeah, it goes from the United States to Mexico to Brazil.
Right.
Austin, United States. Now we have to say Austin, Austin, Mexico,
To
then
Mexico to
Brazil
Brazil. Right.
in the fall. That's why I said last week I think Miami will be perfect in the springtime. One, you're using an NFL stadium, so you need to be free during that time. But two, something back to back with Canada, so that you can stay in North America a little bit longer on this side of the pond, to say. But Mike, your
What
take.
track are they talking about in the United States? Are they talking about Vegas?
What, as for switching back and forth?
Well, if there was if there was to be a third.
Oh, we'll get to that here in a second. But Mike, first, I want to take your opinion on this as far as Canada getting dropped for Turkey.
Well, I'm not a not a fan of turkey.
More of a chicken guy myself.
I like ham.
It's unfortunate that Canada loses that Grand Prix, and not only does it take a race away from North America, but there's some rich history in F1 with Canadian drivers in that race course. It's pretty much every inch of it's named after a Canadian driver that's either lost his life or was a star in that sport. So it's kind of sad to see it leave Canada, to be honest with you. But
Yeah.
Hopefully they can get the COVID thing straightened out by 2022, and it'll be back in North America. But just kind of parroting what Chaz says, the United States has never been a real big. I mean, there's F1 fans in the U.S., and I think the peak of F1 as far as fandom in the United States was in the 70s and 80s, and then it kind of went away because we didn't have a whole lot of races in the 90s and 2000s. Maybe the racetrack in New York that I like, whose name just floated in my head.
Watkins Glen.
Watkins Glen. That was the big venue. That, and they had street races in Detroit. They had street races in San Diego. They had street races in Miami. So until the Circuit of Americas popped up, we really didn't have a whole lot going on in F1 here. I mean, NASCAR is king. Indy racing is king here in the United States. So there wasn't anything really to bind us to F1. And I think it's starting to get a resurgence thanks to a bunch of documentaries on the internet that I turned you on to, Brock.
Yep.
The Netflix series about Drive to Survive. I think that brought a new generation of people interested in F1 and interested in the drivers and the drama and the politics and everything that goes along with this type of race. We need more races in North America, though. At least four.
You reminded me of a quick story. What happened the weekend of Imola? The ratings for United States, of course, NASCAR brought in over 3 million viewers. IndyCar brought in about just over 900,000 viewers. And Formula One, I want to say, I don't have the rough numbers here, but Formula One brought in just over 1 million viewers for Imola. So that's probably the biggest spike in the past couple of years in ratings for them.
Yeah, and I think that Netflix show has a lot to do with it, to be honest with you.
Well, then this next story is what Chaz kind of hinted out earlier, is McLaren CEO Zak Brown's idea for a third race here in the United States. Now, the F1 CEO, Stefano Domenicali, likes the idea, but they're not planning on this anytime soon because they want to concentrate on getting a race in Africa concentrating on bringing Vietnam to the calendar finally before they even think about getting the United States a third race. But Zak Brown's idea is this: is Miami, since they just inked their deal, signed their deal for 10 years, keep it there for 10 years. The other option is, and he said, try this out for first couple years, back to back, is have it here at COTA 1 year, then go to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the other year. And if it's successful, just rotate it back and back for those next few years. Mike, what do you think about that? I know you want to see Watkins Glen on there, but what do you think about
Watkins Glen will never be ready for an F1 race. I think it's going to take a lot of work. That's just a pipe dream. I bring it up just kind of as a fantasy, but that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
I just hate switching venues back and forth, especially when the local economy is affected. For those of us who've lived through COTA, especially us that drove rideshare through COTA, that's a big weekend. And that's a big weekend for everything that happens in Austin: restaurants, hotels, the tourists that come in from all over the world. I mean, they even have they try to line up some music festival along with it just to showcase the city. And that's a lot of income that Austin's going to lose. And if you bounce it back and forth like that, that's just going to, I don't know. I think you might lose fans. I might be wrong. I might just be belly aching because I know it's going to take a lot of money out of our economy. But I don't. It's like switching quarterbacks. Pick one,
Right.
Pick one, and play the game.
Well, Chaz, this is just an idea that Zak Brown had, but your take on it.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go with Mike 100% on this. I really don't like that idea of like moving around. I love Zak Brown. Love the guy a lot, actually, and he's probably one of the. I mean, he's probably one of the only, if not the most influential, unless I'm just missing somebody or overlooking somebody, Americans in Formula One. Today. So I really like the guy a lot, and what he's done at McLaren has been fantastic. I think it's I just don't like the idea. I don't love it. I think we just need more races here.
Well, with a 23 race calendar, I mean, you're gonna have to give something up. I mean, I want to talk about this next week, though. Where is the German Grand Prix? Where is Hockenheim Ring? I missed that. That is a historic track, and you can't say that it's not in use because MotoGP is going there in the fall, and other races is going there as well.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's an issue about money or what, but it just, I don't know. But that's for next.
It's an older racetrack. We'll talk.
We'll discuss that next week. But speaking about, I mean, honestly, I could talk about tracks the entire show. I love talking about racetracks, but in this particular one, I absolutely love. I'm so happy to see them return to Suzuka for the next 3 years for the Japanese Grand Prix. It is started in 1987. And it is one of fantastic. I know, Mike, you probably would prefer Fuji, but it is a track that's. I heard that Fuji's very hard to get to. It takes almost over an hour to get to by train. Suzuka is very close to a metropolitan area and has some, not just a great track, but also has some great opportunities, venues around there. So it's just festival type of atmosphere around it. But
and to be fair, it's always raining at Fuji.
Well, Fuji too. I mean, honestly, but yeah, no, Japan is always like that. But it is for only being on the calendar for 33 going on 34 years. it has some history to it, Suzuka. But
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
no, the Japanese love F1, and they've done a good job hosting it. It just rains a lot there. I mean, it seems like every important race through history of F1 that's come down to something, it's pouring rain. And everybody's driving through spray, but they do a good job. They keep their tracks up to date. They got a great fan base. I mean, they pack them out. It's an exciting place to race in Japan.
Well, I mean, you got also an upstore with Yuki Tsunoda, and I'm sure he's going to create some buzz for the Japanese Grand Prix there.
Especially if he's finishing high in the points, which I project he will. He's going to improve as the season and his confidence grows.
Mm-hmm. Chaz, what do you think about this? Are you happy about Suzuka, or do you want to see a Japanese Grand Prix on the calendar?
You said, do I want to see a Japanese Grand Prix?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Japanese races are great. I think the track is great. It's Japanese fans are they you're right. They do love Formula One, so I think it's great, especially for such a small country to have a racetrack. I think if we had a racetrack proportional to Japan, we'd have like 16 of them. I mean, for a country that size to have a track, I mean, if we had one for every Japan we could fit in our country, we'd have a bunch. Of course, everything has to come back to America, but yeah, no. I'm great about the Japanese Grand Prix. It's great.
Well, honestly, the S's on the Circuit of the Americas, of course. I know they probably disagree with me with saying this, but it is modeled after the S's of Suzuka. So we have some Japanese heritage here in Austin. So that's always nice to see. But to our point about Yuki Tsunoda there too, finish high in points. Our new Twitter poll is out. Who will win the championship first? And we're going to discuss this next week. I'm really excited about this. Will it be Yuki? Or will it be Mick Schumacher? We'll discuss that next week. But
good question. I also to add to our earlier point too is it's great for Japan to have a Japanese driver too.
Yes.
Like how great is that? I mean, he's gonna be the Verstappen of Japan. Yeah, I mean, you see how Verstappen's support has been in his country. It's ridiculous. I think he's going to be the same for Suzuki. For Tsunoda. So that's awesome.
Well, I got to look up this guy's name too. But speaking about Zak Brown, he signed on, 13, 14-year-old from New York. You're part of the country there, Chaz. To be a junior driver for McLaren.
Okay.
So that's interesting to see, try to get an American driver into Formula One.
I like it.
I do too. And that's what we need.
It's been a while since we've had one.
And that's I would say that's probably the main ingredient to get a United States fan base, is to get a United States driver, not just in Formula One, but competing successfully for points.
That's so true. I mean, Great Britain fans everyone knows who Lewis Hamilton is, right? Everyone. And I would say that, whether it's UFC and Conor McGregor, I am very sure that a lot of Irish fans got into the sport because of Conor McGregor. There's a very, very big correlation between a star in a sport and how into it that country is and how supportive they are. It happens with racing too. British people have been really into even cycling in recent years because they've been doing well.
That's good. Well, Mike, you ready to spend some dollars for us on Dogecoin or what?
I got you.
I got you.
I'll send you the information from my wallet after this, Mike.
But if I win, you got to buy me more Dogecoin.
Wait, was that the agreement?
Yeah, the rules have already been made.
Yeah, so we're good. But that's for next week. I can't wait to see that Dogecoin in my account. But in the meantime, give us a comment, like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Form of Racing. That's also for our Facebook. And follow. But vote on our Twitter poll too. Who won the championship first? Mike or Mick Schumacher or Yuki Tsunoda? And join us next time.
For me.
You should have told me. I would have put you part of the poll, but I'm sorry, Mike.
Imagine my fat ass trying to fit in an F1 car. Oh my God.
I would pay money to see that. I would pay you Dogecoin for that.
They'd have to redesign the car. I'd look like a weekend at Austin Pizza where the kids are all in the go-karts and dad's rolling behind them in the big two-seater.
You just think about how much traction you'd have in the corners with a wider car,
right?
With a wider car, you know.
If I could get an engine strong enough to carry my fat ass.
Well, that's the way to end the show. Thank you, guys. Actually, you know what we should do is actually go. We have a test track. Mike, you know about this because you used to be a police officer. Is the driveway here in Austin where they test defensive driving for cops, but it's also where you could train to become a race car driver. And I went on that track too, and I love it. But long story short, we all should try that and compete with one another on that track one of these days.
I took when I was a motorcycle policeman, me and my partner went out and ran a lap around there on our Beamers.
I like you guys, so I mean, I don't really want to have to do what you're asking me to do, but if you're open to it, I'm open to.
Just remember, it's Rubbins Racing.
Rubbins.
And I'm coming in that inside. Just give it to me because I'm coming in that inside, man.
Yeah, just like a true Williams driver.
Absolutely. Down the torpedoes.
We are going to create our own headlines here, so that's gonna be
win or wreck. That's our motto. Win or wreck. There's no second place.
So what? So Williams has been wrecking.
You're first, you're last.
And from the quote of Ricky Bobby, we'll close the show. So once again, follow us on Twitter. Vote on our Twitter poll, which is at a Form of Racing, who will win the championship for Schumacher or Tsunoda. And follow us also on Facebook at Form of Racing, and drop us a line on email. Give us a topic, theformofracing@gmail.com. And we'll see you next time right here on the F1 Starting Grid.
See ya.